Welcome back to the series where I overanalyze fictional factions as if they were subjects of a political science dissertation. All joking aside, the series does dive deep into ideologies and the structures that define Bleach's most fascinating groups. In our last video, we tackled the Soul Society and the Soul Reapers, a bastion of feudal authoritarianism, complete with rigid hierarchies, ancient traditions, and dramatic execution plots. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it for context. Today we turn to the Arrancar and the hollows they evolved from. Their existence revolves around hunger and survival. While the Soul Society thrives on order and structure, the Arrancar embrace survivalism and anarchy. Strength dictates worth, and existence is a constant battle. Morality takes a backseat to the instinctive drive to persist, making them a fascinating counterpoint to the rigid systems of the Soul Society. But the Arrancar don't exist in isolation. Enter Aizen, the calculating overlord whose ambition knows no bounds. His arrival in Hueco Mundo isn't about adapting to its chaos, it's about subjugating the Arrancar and reshaping their ideology to fit his goals. What happens when someone tries to impose their vision of order on a faction built on primal chaos? The results are complicated. In this video, we'll break down the Arrancar and Aizen's impact into 3 different sections. First, we'll explore the Arrancar's natural state of chaos and survival. Then we'll examine Aizen's attempt to impose order on this untamable group and the contradictions in his approach. Finally, we'll dive into the philosophical clash between Ichigo's group and the Arrancar, revealing how this conflict shapes one of Bleach's most thought-provoking arcs. Whether you're here to analyze the Arrancar or see how their story ties into Bleach's broader themes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's dive deep into the chaos of the Arrancar.
The Arrancar are more than just antagonists. They represent an ideology rooted in anarchy and survival, a continuation of the brutal existence that defines hollows. For hollows, and by extension the Arrancar, hunger drives everything. A consuming need to devour souls to fill the void in their fragmented existence. This primal hunger fuels their evolution and reinforces the chaotic systems in which they thrive. At the bottom of this hierarchy are the Gillian, mindless behemoths who consume without thought or purpose, driven purely by instinct. Their existence revolves around endless hunger. Huechas, however, face higher stakes. These hollows achieve self-awareness, but their survival depends on continuous consumption to avoid devolving back into mindless Gillian. This desperate need to escape regression propels their evolution, turning survival into a relentless treadmill. Grimmjow's journey exemplifies this harsh reality. As an Huechas, he led a pack of hollows who realized their evolution had stalled. Faced with inevitable regression, they sacrificed parts of their mass to Grimmjow, ensuring his progression at the cost of their own. This act, however, wasn't altruism. It was survival cloaked in pragmatism. Grimmjow's rise came at the cost of his pack's stagnation, showing that cooperation in Hueco Mundo is born of necessity, not trust. This chaotic system takes a significant psychological toll. For the Arrancar, isolation becomes both a symptom and a survival strategy. Stark, the primary Espada, embodies this perfectly. His overwhelming power leaves him isolated, forcing him into solitude. In a world where bonds are vulnerabilities, detachment is not a choice, but a necessity. This isolation shapes not only Stark's identity, but also his view of existence, survival at the cost of connection. Now, this is finally rectified when he splits his soul into 2 separate parts, but the strength he acquired as a hollow showcases the never-ending drive for power, and the isolation that is imposed upon them, whether that is a conscious choice or not. On the opposite end is Baragon, the former king of Hueco Mundo, whose arrogance highlights the dangers of unchecked power. Baragon ruled through domination, believing himself invincible, yet his downfall, caused by his own powers of time and decay, showed how fragile strength is in a chaotic system. Even the self-imposed king could not escape the entropy governing his dominance. His demise is a cautionary tale. Power in this world is as much a curse as it is a tool. The Arrancar's existence mirrors what philosopher Albert Camus called absurdity, the conflict between a desire for meaning and a universe offering none. Their evolutionary hierarchy, Gillian, Huechas, Feste Lorde, isn't a path of purpose, but an endless cycle of survival. Every act of consumption, or every battle, is a temporary victory in a system that ensures no one truly wins. Strength becomes both salvation and damnation, trapping its inhabitants in an endless struggle against their nature. This chaotic balance thrives because it rejects structure. The Arrancar exists in an environment where survival is the only rule, and any attempt to impose control threatens to disrupt this fragile equilibrium. When Aizen arrives, aiming to bend the Arrancar to his will, the contradictions between their anarchic instincts and his authoritarian ambitions become painfully clear. The stage is set for a clash that will define this arc's central conflict.
Having explored the Arrancar's chaotic existence, it's clear that their world is shaped entirely by primal survival. Every action, every relationship, and every power dynamic revolves around the need to persist. But what happens when this ideology of anarchy is forced to contend with an external force that demands order and control? Enter Aizen, whose arrival in Hueco Mundo represents more than just domination. It's a complete restructuring of the Arrancar's very identity. Aizen doesn't simply exploit the chaos of the Arrancar, he weaponizes it. His creation of the Espada turns the inherent survivalistic instincts of the Arrancar into tools for his own ambitions. However, this forced hierarchy brings inherent contradictions. Can a group defined by individualism and self-preservation truly function as a cohesive unit? Or does Aizen's control only deepen the fractures within their anarchic nature? Let's dive deep into how Aizen's vision collides with the Arrancar's instincts in ways both compelling and catastrophic. Because chaos never bows without a fight, and honestly, as the audience, would we even want it to?
When Aizen enters Hueco Mundo, his goal is to transform a world defined by chaos into a tool for his ambition. Hollows, driven by instinct and hunger, thrive in disorder, their survival rooted in chaos. Aizen, however, seeks to reshape this natural state into an organized system. His approach is calculated, stripping Hollows of their masks and granting them Shinigami-like powers to create Arrancar. Yet in doing so, Aizen doesn't just change their nature, he pits it against itself. The Arrancar exist in two extremes: the untamed chaos of their hollow origins and the structured hierarchical order imposed by their transformation. The Espada, Aizen's supposed pinnacle of this experiment, embody this contradiction. Though intelligent and overwhelmingly powerful, their inherent individualism and survivalistic instinct clash with Aizen's vision of discipline and control. Aizen's experiment reveals a fundamental flaw. He seeks to impose order on beings whose very nature rejects it. Hueco Mundo's barren world enforces anarchy, with hollows feeding on one another to grow stronger. By forcing them into a hierarchy, Aizen disrupts their equilibrium, creating a structure that relies entirely on his overwhelming power to hold it together. The Espada are not unified by loyalty or shared purpose, but by fear and self-interest. The internal dynamics of the Espada make this tension clear. Aizen encourages competition among them, claiming it strengthens the group by eliminating weakness. Instead, this strategy deepens the chaos, as rivalries and individual ambitions undermine any real cohesion. The result is not a disciplined army, but a collection of individuals bound by force, a rebranding of Hueco Mundo's chaos under Aizen's rule. Yet Aizen's experiment isn't just an act of control, it's a challenge to the very systems he despises. His manipulation of the Arrancar mirrors his rejection of the Soul Society, an institution he views as stagnant and oppressive. However, his methods, absolute authority and fear, ironically replicate the authoritarianism of the Soul Society. Like their rigid hierarchy, Aizen's structure imposes order at the expense of individuality, creating a system doomed to collapse under its own contradictions. Shakespeare's The Tempest offers a compelling lens to understand Aizen's experiment. In the play, Prospero, a powerful sorcerer, imposes his will on the chaotic island and its inhabitants, Caliban, Ariel, and others, through force and manipulation. Like Prospero, Aizen imposes his control over the Hollows and Arrancar, attempting to bend their chaotic instincts to serve his ambitions. But Prospero's control is ultimately an illusion. Caliban, the untamed and primal force of the island, resists authority, while Ariel serves reluctantly, driven only by the hope of eventual freedom. Aizen's Arrancar follow him not out of loyalty, but fear. The Espada, like Caliban, reflect the chaotic nature that cannot be fully subdued. In both The Tempest and Aizen's story, the attempt to impose order on chaos creates a fragile balance. Prospero's grip unravels as his subjects act accordingly to their nature, and Aizen's system faces the same fate, as the Arrancar's inherent anarchy resurfaces. Shakespeare reminds us that control built on domination, not understanding, is fleeting. Aizen's attempt to impose order on Hueco Mundo is ambitious but deeply flawed. By reshaping chaos into structure, he creates a system rife with contradictions, a rebellion against the Soul Society that mirrors his authoritarianism, and a hierarchy built on fear that reflects the primal instincts it seeks to suppress. Ultimately, Aizen's experiment is a testament to his genius, but also his hubris. Chaos cannot be tamed, and the more he tightens his grip, the more fragile his vision becomes. His rule over Hueco Mundo, like the sand beneath his feet, is destined to crumble.
Aizen's fragile order in Hueco Mundo doesn't just clash with the chaotic instincts of the Hollows and the Arrancar he commands, it also sets the stage for a larger philosophical confrontation. Enter Ichigo and his crew. who couldn't be more different if they tried. Where the Arrancar embrace an individualistic survival of the strongest worldview, Ichigo and his allies fight with a collective purpose and a belief in protecting others. These aren't just battle tactics, they're core ideologies, and they couldn't be more opposed. The contrast is striking. The Arrancar's philosophy thrives on solitude and self-preservation, while Ichigo's group finds strength in bonds and mutual trust. On one side, you have a system where the strong dominate the weak. On the other, a team whose strength comes from lifting each other up. It's the kind of ideological clash that practically writes itself, if Hueco Mundo ever decided to hold a debate club. But all jokes aside, this philosophical divide defines their conflict, shaping every confrontation as more than just a fight, but a battle of values.
The conflict between Ichigo's group and the Arrancar isn't just about strength, it's a clash of philosophies. The Arrancar, shaped by the chaos of Hueco Mundo, represent a world where survival and power dominate. Their lives are defined by anarchy, where the strongest thrive and cooperation is dismissed as weakness. Even under Aizen's imposed hierarchy, their individualistic mindset remains central to their existence. Ichigo and his allies, by contrast, embody connection, trust, and shared purpose. Their strength doesn't just come from domination, but from protecting others. This unity allows them to act as a cohesive group, drawing power from their bonds. For them, power isn't just about survival or conquest. It's a tool to defend what they value. Hueco Mundo's barren landscape reflects the isolation and self-interest of its inhabitants. Hollows and Arrancar are solitary by design, trapped in a cycle of dominance and survival. In contrast, Ichigo's relationships reflect interconnectedness. His strength grows not from just his abilities, but from the unwavering support of his allies, who lift each other up in ways the Arrancar cannot understand. This ideological divide mirrors Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. Hobbes describes a state of nature where humans, lacking central authority or shared purpose, act purely in self-interest. This state, marked by constant fear and conflict, becomes a war of all against all, leaving life nasty, brutish, and short. The Arrancar embody this state of nature. Their lives are an endless struggle for survival, driven by instinct rather than cooperation. Even under Aizen, their individualistic tendencies persist. They fight not for a collective goal, but for themselves, making their unity superficial. Aizen's hierarchy doesn't transform their chaotic nature, it merely hides it behind structure. Ichigo's group, in contrast, represents Hobbes' solution to the state of nature, the social contract. They come together, sacrificing certain freedoms for stability and mutual protection. Their trust and shared purpose make them stronger and enable them to overcome challenges that would break a solitary fighter. Hobbes' analysis underscores the stakes. The Arrancar's power and individualism are formidable, but unstable, while Ichigo's collective approach demonstrates the enduring strength of trust and cooperation. Their battles aren't just physical. They're ideological struggles over which way of life will prevail, chaos or unity. This philosophical divide drives Bleach's narrative. Every encounter between Ichigo's group and the Arrancar reflects their competing ideologies. The Arrancar's inability to work together leaves them vulnerable, despite their immense power. For Ichigo and his allies, their bond is more than tactical, it's moral. They fight not for personal gain, but to protect one another and the world they care about. Meanwhile, the Arrancar remain trapped in chaos, unable to achieve true stability.
When you look at the Arrancar, their tragedy is clear. They're powerful, but they're alone. Even under Aizen's hierarchy, they can't fully escape the chaos that defines them. Their strength, while immense, is fleeting, fragile in the absence of connection. They're creatures of survival, unable to trust, unable to rely on one another, and ultimately unable to build something that lasts. Ichigo and his crew stand as a counterpoint to this. Their strength isn't just in their individual abilities, but in the bonds they forged. Connection is their greatest weapon, the foundation that allows them to stand together, even in the face of overwhelming odds. This isn't just about fighting together, it's about believing in one another, about knowing they're stronger because they're not alone. That's what makes them truly unstoppable. And that's the heart of the message here. Power born of isolation can only carry you so far, but the strength that comes from connection, that's what lasts. The Arrancar show us what happens when chaos reigns, but Ichigo's crew reminds us that the real power lies in unity.
I hope you've enjoyed this installment of the Enemy series. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss the next video. We're diving deeper into the forces Ichigo faces, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. See you soon.